to hear what it's all about.
Hello, I'm Angela Barnes and you're listening to the Friday Night Comedy Podcast. Friday nights feel different these days. I used to come home, make some dinner, maybe have a cheeky glass of wine, settle down on the sofa and listen to the Friday Night Comedy Podcast. Actually, maybe it's not that different after all. Wherever you're listening from, I hope you enjoy this episode of The News Quiz.
Welcome to The News Quiz with your host, Angela Barnes.
Hello, you are listening to another lockdown edition of The News Quiz coming from our very own front rooms. Now, while I miss Broadcasting House, there are pros to recording at home. No rush hour travel, the constant vicinity of biscuits. But on the other hand, my chances of running into fit weatherman Thomas Schaffernacker in the corridor are now virtually zero. We'll start tonight with this unusual prize giveaway in the Park Rapids Enterprise newspaper, Minnesota, read by Zeb Soanes.
Enter the Enterprise's I Need a Haircut contest and you could win a chainsaw.
And thank you to Ellen Flynn for sending that in. Now let's meet the teams. In Team A, we have Kiri Pritchard-McLean and Michael Deacon.
Hiya.
Hello.
And in Team B, it's Andy Zaltzman and Suzi Ruffell.
Hello.
Hello. How are you all doing?
Good, thanks.
I'm absolutely knackered, which sounds like a ridiculous thing to say because I'm not a nurse or a doctor or anything actually important. I'm just a silly journalist. But I mean, apart from working all day, I'm basically pulling a shift as a primary school teacher at the same time. So I remember, sort of covering Brexit and general elections and referendums and thinking, wow, this is chaos. I'm so tired. It's never going to be as bad as this again. And now I look back and I think, wow, those were golden days, the lovely, relaxing days of endless Brexit votes in the House of Commons. So, yeah, I weirdly miss that now, and I never thought that would happen.
It's a weird time. This week I had to cut my dog's hair with my fella's beard trimmers. I think, has anyone else learnt any new skills?
Well, like the rest of the country, I've learnt to make banana bread.
I learned that I can go up a dress size in 3 days, which is...
Good. Well, now we found out how exciting your lives all are in lockdown, I reckon it's time to crack on. Kiri, who is back in business?
Guess who's back? Back again. It's Boris. Boris
Yay!
Is back to work after obviously being unwell, having COVID-19, and also he's back to work after the birth of his son. His partner's given birth to a healthy baby boy. Apparently as well, he was present at the birth. Which feels quite modern, doesn't it?
I think he was just in the background somewhere shouting, just get birth done, Harry Simmons.
I saw there's some really pearl clutching going on from a lot of the reporting, that they're focusing on the fact that Carrie and Boris are the first couple to live in Downing Street who are living in sin. They are unmarried.
Oh, yeah.
They made quite a big deal out of this, and I just think it's such a weird sort of moral thing to project onto people. But then maybe I'm saying that because my parents have been together nearly 50 years and they got married about 8 years ago, which is quite strange, but it's also lovely. Like, it was so beautiful. And I remember sitting down with my mum on the wedding day and I said, why after all this time have you decided to get married? And she looked at my dad, she had the most incredible look in her eyes, and she said, we just sat down and we had a little chat and we decided that it made sense for tax purposes. So that's the absolute dream. And there's also loads of chat going on with Boris now about whether he's going to take paternity leave or not. So paternity leave, I didn't realise, is about 2 weeks, so 1 or 2 weeks. And also it's weird that he's announcing his children now. That is a big thing I think we've stepped forward as a country. It's always strange to be announcing something that happens so frequently. It'd be like me announcing every time I finish one of those share bags of crisps.
Do you see that line from Jacob Rees-Mogg? Because he's got 6 children. And he said, Boris has joined the exclusive club whose members are fathers of 6. And I thought, I like his confidence in that number.
Yeah, but it's really common. Apparently, only 1 in 3 men take paternity leave. And I think it's because people see it like a holiday, but it's not really a holiday if your holiday is with a screaming child looking into the face of the person you love who's just had to be stitched back together because of you.
No, exactly. That was my experience because I took 2 weeks paternity leave.
I've taken 13 years of paternity leave and I've no real intention to end it.
And you've got no children either, have you?
I was just thinking to myself the other day that what we really need now is a Prime Minister with a major, massive life distraction at this difficult time.
I think he must be thinking, this is so much harder than I thought it was going to be. He's had such a hectic few months. He's won an election, Brexit stuff, divorce, got a dog, got his girlfriend pregnant, very quickly had to announce an engagement, then told everyone to wash their hands because of corona, then carried on shaking hands in spite of corona, got corona, intensive care, week out, new baby. I mean, I think the whole time he just must be looking at David Cameron and thinking, you had it easy with that pig, mate.
So this is the news that Boris Johnson is back at work just 18 days after nearly dying of COVID-19 and 36 hours after his fiancée gave birth to his sixth child. Is it just me, or is his term of office starting to feel like he's being produced by the Hollyoaks team? 2 points to Kiri. OK, everyone, have a listen to disaster did planet Earth avoid this week?
As if we didn't have enough trouble on our plates, we very nearly got absolutely dinosaured out of existence by an asteroid. Although I was reading Dr. Brad Tucker, a self-proclaimed and indeed qualified astrophysicist, said this asteroid poses no danger to the Earth and will not hit. It is one catastrophe we won't have, which is a classic line you hear in the first 3 minutes of a disaster movie. We know how this is going to end.
I like the idea that this is one catastrophe we won't have, like we're going to have all the others. So we've got this one this year. Next year, I think we're down for the plague of locusts. The year after that, it's going to rain frogs. Year after that, Hitler's back.
It feels like this is the last series of The World, and writers are just throwing everything at it. Just like, yeah, deadly virus, sure. Asteroid, sure. UFO, yeah, why not? Throw it in.
This is the tram crashing in Coronation Street, but for the world, isn't it?
There's part of me wanted to see the asteroid hit just to see how Donald Trump would respond to it. You know, how he's going to find a way to blame the Democrats and Chinese for an asteroid.
Well, actually, I mean, ironically, disinfectant would actually probably be more effective on the asteroid than it would on coronavirus. I mean, America's had a lot of asteroid strikes in the past. I think here in Britain, we can take great national pride in being one of the best nations in the world at avoiding asteroid strikes. Of the 190 confirmed impact craters on Earth, not a single one is in the UK. That shows what we can do in this country when we pull together. A force field of pure Britishness protects us from all evil.
Suzi, you mentioned just now a UFO.
Yes.
Did anyone see what was released from the Pentagon this week?
Yeah, and every time I watch footage of something like this, I'm like, oh, okay.
And for anyone that doesn't know what this is, there was a unidentified flying object, as we would call it, but the Pentagon preferred to call them unexplained aerial phenomena in case, unidentified flying object was a bit too specific.
Because this footage is from like 2015. So it feels like the ultimate distraction technique. They're literally going, look, what's that up there?
What could the US Defense Department possibly be wanting to distract us from? I can't imagine. I mean, the president's just advocated drinking disinfectant.
Every time he said something outrageous, they're going to have to keep putting out stuff to be like, look over here, look over here. How long is it going to be before they release the JFK tapes? Like, they're coming out. We're going to find out.
So this is the news that this week the US Defense Department officially released videos of Navy pilots reacting to what looked like UFOs. Personally, I've never seen a UFO, but that might be because of all the tinfoil I've put on my windows. 2 points to Suzi. Michael, have a listen to what's going to happen next.
Yeah, this is kind of, what the government's next steps for handling this crisis. And I think just generally as a country, we don't really know what the government should be doing next. But that's kind of been the story of the whole thing, hasn't it, really? At each stage, none of us seem sure what the government should be doing. But then about a month later, we say, well, obviously what the government should have been doing a month ago is X or Y. The technology they really need to prioritise at the moment is building a time machine so they can go forward a month, find out the incredibly obvious thing that the government should have been doing now, then come back and do the incredibly obvious thing. And what they want is they want all of us, or at least most of us, to download a new app to our phones. So what it's going to do is it's going to follow us all around. And then if any one of us starts to feel ill, we enter that into the app, and then they figure out who we've sort of walked too near to, basically. And then they'll let all those other people know that they've been too close to us, and then those people will be tested, and so they'll be able to figure out who needs to be tested, who doesn't, who needs to quarantine themselves, who doesn't. 60% of people will need to download this app to their phone, and I don't know what percentage of people in this country actually have a phone or even know what an app is. It's very, very complex, but anyway, this is roughly speaking the next step.
you can hear the sort of collective sigh of everyone under 40, can't you? Knowing that they're going to have weeks of phone calls from their parents going, the app's gone funny. I don't know what to do.
The other part of this story was the 10 people bubble. There's going to be like 10 people that you can hang out with.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what a way to find out you're not in your friend's top 10. Like, absolutely gutting. And also, if you choose them, do they have to see you?
To choose...
Because if that's the case, Meryl Streep's in my 10 and someone needs to let her know.
I like this app. It's sort of the opposite of Pokemon Go, because on that you've got to catch them all. On this, you've just got to not catch one thing. That's the rule. What they should do is just hide it on Candy Crush, and then it would be all the problems would be solved.
I think the conspiracy theory lot will hate this, because they'll think that the whole virus was a way of the government to keep tabs on us. It's always, when people are saying that, they're always people that you look at and go, no one's keeping tabs on you, mate. Like, no one's keeping tabs on you. Don't you worry, Brian. Your doomsday bunker in Weston-super-Mare is safe.
There have been other apps around, though. I think there's 53 different contact tracing apps in 29 countries. People have been talking about these apps for months around the world. I'm starting to suspect that the government is broadcasting itself on a 2-month delay. And I'm pretty sure Matt Hancock the other day wished everyone a happy Valentine's Day. So I think there might be it's sounding like even with this app, it could be 2021 before major sport is allowed to take place with big crowds again. I think Optimism isn't due to be relaunched until 2026. I just think you don't want to rush into it and risk a second spike of mass pessimism. It's better to build up gradually towards a base level of safe optimism.
Are we worried about lockdown easing? Are we looking forward to it? Are we excited?
I'm just a bit confused because I read that, when they allow the pubs to reopen, they're going to just do it very gently so that you're allowed to go to the pub, but you're only allowed 3 pints. And I just find that very confusing because how do you police that? Because, I could have 3 pints in this pub and then I could go down the road and then have 3 pints in that pub and so on and so on. So how do you work out? There needs to be another tracking app, I think, just to see how many pints I have had.
They haven't said pints of what? 3 pints of wine? I can do that over a day.
Fast food stores have said are looking into reopening. Is that something that we're happy about? McDonald's, Nando's, Greggs?
I literally think Mackey's opening is a response to all the UK hangovers, as we're all sort of habitually sliding into alcoholism. They're like, these people need sausage and egg McMuffins. Let's just get this rolling. Like, they're not bothered about the schools. Like, let's get Mackey's open.
I don't know. I think it's nice we can all return to our preferred choice of demise in this country, which is death by steak bake. This is the news that the government is to release a COVID-19 contact tracing app. The app will tell you whether or not you've been in contact with someone with COVID-19 and, crucially, whether or not you both like pina coladas and getting caught in the rain. 2 points to Michael. And that brings us to the end of round one. At the end of round one, Kiri and Michael have 4 points. Andy and Suzi have 2. Before we crack on with round 2, we've been sent this headline spotted in a Sheffield newspaper. Sheffield primary school teacher leaves touching message for her pupils tied to a lamppost. And thank you to Paul Bassett for sending that in. Andy, have a listen. Which leader is out of sight but not out of mind?
Well, this would be Kim Jong-un, the North Korean number one. I don't like referring to leaders informally, so I'll call him Kimberly, if that's all right. There are various theories as to where he could be after being uncharacteristically quiet for a while. One theory is that he's dead, another that he's nearly dead, a third that he's pretending to be dead, another that he's just chilling, but not in a dead kind of way. One theory that's gaining a lot of traction on the international rumour circuit is that he's trying to get an online order of bread flour to go through. Another that he's trying to get an online order of nuclear warheads to go through. Everything is under stress at the moment. It could be that he's just taken a bit of time off to investigate career options. I mean, he's in his mid-30s now, possibly like we all are at this time. You're thinking a bit about what we've done with our lives. He's been a despot now for nearly a decade, and you've got to think the novelty's worn off. It could be just like Bjorn Borg in tennis, burnt out early after a spectacular young career, but maybe doesn't have the longevity of some of the other despots that history has enjoyed, if that is the right word, which it emphatically isn't. Another theory theories that he's had surgery. There's been a lot of talk that he's had surgery. He's going to emerge with a snout like a crocodile and a raccoon's tail. So we just don't know. In terms of who could replace him, his younger sister, Kim Yo-jong, seems to be the bookies' favourite. And it's about time the feminist movement started making some inroads into the dictatorship sector, which, really remained distressingly patriarchal. His older brother, Kim Jong-chul, is not thought to be a candidate. He's reported to be a music-loving Eric Clapton superfan, whereas Kim Jong-un, of course, is more of a Jimi Hendrix believer, and Kim Yo-jong prefers the more restrained, expressive melancholy of ex-Fleetwood Mac guitar wizard Peter Green. Can the Kim family hold on to power despite their differing attitudes towards 1960s blues guitar legends? Only time will tell, Angela. Only time will tell.
Oh, I think sometimes, Andy, you've just got to face reality and take over the family dictatorship. Haven't you? You just got to leave behind childish things.
But North Korea has taken some draconian measures to stop the coronavirus entering the country, including 7 decades of isolationist despotism. So they've come up with a very good scheme that maybe we should be thinking about that kind of thing in case this happens again.
He hasn't been seen, Kim Jong-un, in public since the 11th of April, like literally all of us. They noticed he was missing, didn't they, from a celebration honouring his grandfather, Kim Il-sung. And I do think, look, mate, I know you're in lockdown and whatever, but there's always Moonpig. I do think whenever a supervillain goes missing, it's never a good sign, is it? I think the chances are he's hollowed out a mountain somewhere.
Did you hear about where he's staying? So he's staying in this luxury complex that's got 4 large guest houses, a port, a shooting range, a jet ski, and a horse riding track. Like, is he in North Korean centre parks? You know, one thing I will say is go careful at the bar. It is far more expensive than you would imagine.
This is the news that rumours abound about the health of North Korean Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un. It's said that in his absence, his sister could be lined up to take on his duties. Kim Yo-jong has been labelled as the Ivanka Trump of North Korea, a description Donald Trump immediately shot down, saying, no way, she's a 7 at most. 2 points to Andy. This is a question for everybody. Why will people be singing from their doorsteps next week?
It's because it's going to be the 75th anniversary of VE Day. But of course, people can't have street parties in the actual streets, so they're all going to have street parties by themselves. And, you know, I'll be turning out in my droves, in my living room, shaking my own hand, giving myself a hug, high-fiving myself, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's... So
a normal Tuesday?
Yeah.
In 75 years' time, they'll be having similar events to mark the end of our war against the virus, and those of us who are still around, I'll be 120 by then. But our great-grandchildren will be sitting on our kneecaps saying, what did you do in the virus war? And we'll be responding, I stewed myself in a porridge of introspection and pretended everything would be fine. And I cleaned out some cupboards. I was a hero.
I'm struggling to keep up with all the things we've got to do these days. You know, it's the 8 o'clock clap for the NHS, 8:30 mass sing-along for the soldiers, 9 o'clock Zumba for the post office. It's hard to keep it all in your head, isn't it?
It is. Well, I've actually got an automatic clapper now that I just leave outside the front door, just two hands on sticks that at 2 p.m, 5 p.m, and 8 p.m. every day just automatically clap. And I figure that it's going to be appropriate for someone. It's showing an appreciation for pretty much every part of society. By just make and just have an app on your phone you can just press when you want to clap something just for the hell of it.
I was going to say, you've got to be careful. You don't want to accidentally found out you've just done a clap for Nigel Farage, do you? That would be terrible.
But of course, I mean, like with any war, the aftermath is going to be crucial as well. And, I look forward to when we can put the virus on trial to account for its crimes, if, of course, it's got the courage to face justice.
They say, is it, they're encouraging people to have stay-at-home street parties, which has the added bonus of not having to be anywhere near your neighbours. I think it sounds pretty fun.
The first thing I thought when I read this story was Ben Fogle must be absolutely fuming. Absolutely fuming! He tried to get a sing-song going for the Queen's birthday and got so much backlash he had to leave Twitter.
Yeah, but you can bash Ben Fogle, you can't bash Dame Vera Lynn. That's the law.
The nation has been invited to have a big sing-along of We'll Meet Again, which is about the most information we've been given about when lockdown's going to end.
A national sing-along does feel a little bit North Korean. Doesn't it? I just think when this is all over, are we all going to come out with perms like the Queen's as a national haircut?
Also, it's a gorgeous song, but not everyone knows the words. If you want something that we can all sing along to, it's got to be something that's played at a working class wedding. It's got to be like the Time Warp or something like that.
Do you guys remember earlier in the year people really kicked off that the bank holiday was being moved? So it was being moved so that it fell on VE Day, which feels so laughable now. Like, May bank holiday. I thought it was still March. Like,
They're also asking people to sew their own bunting. Are you going to be sewing some bunting?
I wouldn't have thought so.
I quite like a bit of bunting, but when you think about it, it is just crap curtains.
The origin of bunting's quite interesting.
Is it?
Yeah, well, it goes back to the wedding of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert in 1840. And which they're very much in love and unusual for the time. And their wedding night got quite, well, enthusiastic, shall we say. And anyway, there was a great tradition in those days at a royal wedding that you'd gather outside Buckingham Palace and applaud the happy couple the following morning. And people looked up and they saw their bits of underwear dangling from the curtain rail, and people thought, oh, that's obviously what you're supposed to do, because Prince Albert, of course, had a Union Jack posing pouch made specially for the occasion. So there's these triangular bits of fabric hanging down, and people thought, oh, obviously that's what you're supposed to do to celebrate a great occasion. It's lucky that they didn't look in the window on the other side of the bedroom, otherwise bunting today would involve gimp masks, a whip and a roast chicken.
Andy Zaltzman, I marvel at your brain, but at the same time, I'm so glad I'm not locked down with you. Have you heard what a town in Sweden is doing to prevent their locals from gathering for a festival? Did you read about this? This is in the town of Lund in Sweden, where they have a spring festival every year, which is popular with students in their local park. And in order to keep them away and stop them gathering, they've decided to cover the park in chicken manure.
We've all done it.
Yeah, absolutely. In the hope that but then I just think these are students. That's still going to smell better than their bedrooms. I sort of like this idea. I like that we've gone, right, it's VE Day, we're in lockdown, let's make the best of it. It's a very British thing to do. And I think we've got Wimbledon coming up. And I think what we should do for Wimbledon is just have CCTV footage of Tim Henman in his garden losing a game of swing ball to himself. This is the story that this year's VE Day 75th anniversary celebrations have been adapted to take place under lockdown. It'll still be a moving day where the whole nation can say thank you to that golden generation whose ultimate sacrifice granted us the freedom we all used to have. That's 2 points to Kiri and Michael. Before we take a look at the final scores, has anybody heard about the new research that came out this week conducted by the Audience Agency about how men will regularly give up reading a book before they reach page 50, while women frequently surpass the 100-page mark? Are we reading more in lockdown?
I'm slightly sceptical of this sign. I mean, for a start, in terms of the most important research that can be done at the moment, I don't think this is top 10. I think we could be focusing our attention as a species on more important targets. But
the Audience Agency do seem like the people for a vaccine, I must admit.
To be honest, if you can't say it in under 50 pages, don't bother saying it at all. I mean, he fancied her, she didn't fancy him, but in the end he won her round. The end. That's basically most novels, isn't it?
I didn't know that you're a fan of Danielle Steele.
I do find as I get older, I've got less patience with a book. I used to just read all books I read to the end. Then as I get older, you're more aware, I think. I'm in my mid-40s now, that time's running out. I can't waste it. Like, I would love now to go back to 20-year-old me and cash in all that Dan Brown time I wasted.
I totally agree with this, because you should just give up. If a book is boring after 50 pages, give it up, because it's not homework. The teacher is not going to mark you for this. You're allowed to just stop. I think this whole idea that, you've got to keep on going because it's an acclaimed work of literature, so you've got to go to the end even if it's incredibly boring. It's a very, very middle class idea. It's a little bit like your mother telling you, when you're a child, you've got to eat up all your vegetables even though you hate them. You don't have to do that with a book. Just stop. I think the men are right on this. They shouldn't plough on.
Just in case my children are listening, you do have to do that with your vegetables. You absolutely have to do it with your vegetables.
I'm quite into short stories. So that's like, so you sort of takes that out of it. Like, I don't know if you guys are across the Spot series, but God, he gets up to a lot. He's doing different things. There's a party. He's got a mate that's an alligator. You know, and they really whip along.
Everyone under 50 pages. I can't wait to find out what's going to happen to the caterpillar in the book I'm reading. He's got a question
They're saying that actual book sales are falling in favour of ebooks. Have we got a preference? Kiri, are you a voracious reader?
I am when I've got time off, yeah. I've read a couple of books this week. I like having something physical to have in my hand when I'm reading.
You've read a couple of books this week?
Yeah, mate, I'm one of those prodigies you hear so much about. You know, apparently romance is the most finished genre of book, which doesn't make sense to me because they all end the same, don't they? They all get together. Like, there's no Mills and Boon book where the stable girl's like, actually, I'm just going to set up my own business. And then the rich landowner goes and marries another man and they breed labradoodles, which is a shame because that is a book that I would absolutely read. Also, apparently, according to this research, poetry is thriving as a genre. It's one of the fastest developing genres, which I believe is the third horseman of the apocalypse.
Yeah, I'm not a poetry fan. I've said it before to people, and they can't. I can't shake the feeling that poetry is a medium for people who've never been told they're rubbish at anything.
Yeah, but have you heard the poem "There Was Once a Girl from Nantucket"? that one is very good.
Did you see in the report? It said, and I quote, right? It said that there's been a 66% increase in the popularity of poetry because of the online fan bases of poetry influencers. Can you imagine being the person that is happy to put poetry influencer on your CV? The world only needs one poetry influencer, and that is Pam Ayres. That brings us to the end of the show tonight, and the final scores are Kiri and Michael have 6 and Andy and Suzi have 4. Thanks.
Shocking.
As always, well, you know this stuff matters. It matters more in lockdown somehow, doesn't it? It really does. Yeah. Thanks to our glorious panel and you, the listeners, for joining us. We'll leave you with this upcoming ecosystem webinar spotted by Clara Gallagher.
How to create massive transformative moments. Host, World Toilet Organization.
And with that, goodbye.
Taking part in the news quiz were Michael Deacon, Kiri Pritchard-McLean, Suzi Ruffell and Andy Zaltzman. In the chair was Angela Barnes and the news was read by me, Zeb Soames. The chair script was written by Ed Amsden, Tom Coles and Laura Major, with additional material from Charlie Dinkin, Aidan Fitzmaurice and Athena Cugblenu. The producer was Susie Grant and it was a BBC Studios production.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
1212, 1212. This is a public service announcement for the BBC. Oh, let me just close. I'm just 2 more minutes, Nancy. I'm just recording some audio. Working from home. My name's Louis Theroux, and I'm doing a new podcast for Radio 4. It's called Grounded with Louis Theroux. I've assembled a series of interviews from my own home. For some episodes, I may even be in my pyjamas. I'll be talking to people that I find interesting, people whose work I admire, people who, in normal circumstances, I might not have a chance to speak to.
I told a couple of my good friends and they were like, oh my gosh, what have you done wrong? Have you done something wrong? Is it one of those weird documentary series? And I went, no, I think it's just a chat.
The idea is that we can dig a little deeper.
I walked out on stage once and the whole front row were blacked up.
Peel back the layers and find out who they really are.
I don't think a penis has ever been inside me. Will that do?
A free-flowing exchange of ideas.
You spend your life catastrophizing in the most kind of absurd ways.
Reflecting on what's going on now, but also looking back at the past.
Malcolm X went to Smethwick. Things were so bad in the West Midlands that the baddest black dude in America flew on his own dime and walked around. All right, Malcolm.
2 people communing through the miracle of the interweb at long distance and yet so very close.
I am not going to do ironing. It's just a rule I have. So it's no good asking me.
We've got to quite a real place all of a sudden.
I'm feeling anxious just even going to the far end of this conversation like we are.
To hear new episodes as soon as they go live, just subscribe to Grounded with Louis Theroux on BBC Sounds. Let's face it, you've got nothing better to do. Although that's not quite true, because actually there is a lot to do. When I hear people on the radio going like, If you're at home, you're so bored because you're like, no, I'm not bored.